I'm so excited to share with you a wacky practice technique that I used to learn the hardest fast passage that I've ever played, with more success in about 2 to 4 weeks of practice on it than I was able to accomplish in over a year of working on it with more traditional practice methods.
My name is Josh Gu, and I'm taking my years of experience learning, teaching, and performing, and sharing all of my best clarinet and music tips so you can get more out of your practice, and most importantly, have fun. You can learn more about all of my many resources at quickstartclarinet.com, and don't forget to subscribe to this channel and hit the bell to get notified when I post new videos.
Just over about a year and a half ago now, I think it was, I was practicing some stuff and felt like my skills were getting pretty good, and I was thinking, I want to work on something like really challenging. I want to have that kind of motivation and productivity in my practice again, to do something that's like crazy hard. And I've also was hearing some other clarinetists doing some really cool things that made the clarinet feel like not just the clarinet. And at the same time, I was starting to get into the band Polyphia, which is kind of a progressive metal, progressive rock kind of band, with some really, really cool guitar playing. And I was thinking, man, I want to be able to do that kind of cool stuff on the clarinet. And I thought to myself, instead of trying to kind of reinvent the wheel and figure out what that kind of cool stuff would be on the clarinet, I thought maybe I'll just try to play a Polyphia song. If you know anything about progressive metal or progressive rock, it's not the most easy on the guitar, and playing guitar music on the clarinet is also not the most easy thing to do. So I found one of their songs that didn't have a whole bunch of chords and kind of guitar extended techniques that'd be hard to reproduce on the clarinet, and I started learning it. The song is called 40 Ounce by Polyphia, if you want to look up the original of it, and hopefully in the near future I'll have a video put together of my cover of it, which is almost ready thanks to this practice technique. As I started learning it, there were some parts in there that were hard but doable, some parts in there that were pretty straightforward and didn't take too much practicing to get the hang of, and then there was this one section that was just an absolute nightmare, like the hardest thing that I've ever seen, because it does not lay on the clarinet in any natural, easy way, and it's all 16th notes at 140 beats per minute, which is pretty darn fast, especially for something that's a technical nightmare on the instrument. So these 2 lines of music, I think it's just 4 measures of music, I started working on and did all my kind of traditional practice things. I did it slow, I gradually worked up the tempo as fast as I could, I did my practice rhythms, I did different grouping things, I broke it down into smaller chunks and built it up into bigger chunks, and did all of the kind of traditional practice strategies that I usually do and usually work on any fast technical stuff that I need to learn. After doing all of that, I could basically play it fairly comfortably at 100 beats per minute. So I was still 40 beats per minute away from the goal tempo, and was finding myself just thinking, I don't think this is going to be possible. And then I remembered a fantastic video by Dr. Molly Gabriel that I had seen many years ago, and I'll put a link to that video in the description, of course, as well, where she talks about this process called Interleaved Clicking Up, and she describes it as kind of your last resort in case of emergency, break glass, do this practice strategy. And she said anytime she's had an impossibly fast passage, when she's gone through the interleaved clicking up process on it, she's always been able to get it. So I was like, okay, I think I should give this a try. And a big source of the inspiration to give this a try on this passage also was a student colleague of mine that I know, Marilyn Fleming, made a fantastic practice resource to go through the interleaved clicking up in a more automatic and organized way. I'm going to talk about the interleaved clicking up, and you can watch Dr. Gabriel's video on it, of course, as well. But it's a little bit complicated and a little hard to keep track of, and I think that's why I was not thinking of it as a top-of-mind thing to do, because first of all, I haven't really needed to do it on most things that I've played, and it's a little bit cumbersome to go through, but Marilyn made this fantastic tool that makes it so easy. I'll put a link in the description to that as well, and I'll also show kind of a demonstration of how to use it in this video as well as we work through the process. Makes it so much easier to do this, and it's a fantastic tool. So thank you, Marilyn, for making that for all of us. And for any of you who have kind of a hard, fast passage that you're working on, I highly recommend checking out Marilyn's tool for the interleaved clicking up. Now, what is interleaved clicking up? Well, the title is pretty descriptive of what it is if you understand what interleaving is, and clicking up is gradually increasing the tempo on the metronome. So what interleaved clicking up does is you take the difficult passage and you organize it into smaller segments. I think Dr. Gabriel recommends doing a beat at a time, so you take your tricky measure and you do beat 1 is segment 1, beat 2 is segment 2, beat 3 is segment 3, so on and so forth. You'll see in my demonstration of it, I really mixed up the segments as I did each practice on it, and I think there was a lot of value to that as well, to kind of mix things up and keep it fresh. But what interleaved clicking up is you take your segments, and you can have really as many segments as you want. I generally wouldn't recommend doing much more than 4, or else it'll get really cumbersome and complicated. And what you do is you have your 4 segments identified, and the interleaved clicking up makes it where you click up the first segment by a certain beats per minute, which you can adjust how many you want to do, of course. I did 5, so you do your baseline, slow, comfortable tempo, get it really comfortable and confident at that speed, and then do the first segment 5 clicks faster, and then do it 5 clicks faster, and do it 5 clicks faster, just on the first segment. So the first cycle is clicking up the first segment. Then you go on to the second cycle, and on this cycle you're going to do the second segment at each 5 beats per minute interval, and you're going to do the first segment only every other time. So you do maybe the first 2 at your baseline tempo, then just the second segment 5 clicks faster, then the first 2 5 clicks faster, then just the second 5 clicks faster. So what's happening here is you're interleaving the first segment with the second segment, because you're doing the second segment with every repetition, but the first one you're only coming back to every other repetition, so that gives you some time to forget in between. Then you work that all the way up to your goal tempo, or maybe a little bit above your goal tempo, and go on to cycle 3, where you now do segments 1, 2, and 3 together, and the third segment gets every single click, but the first 2 get interleaved and spaced out more. So you do 1, 2, 3, and then 5 clicks faster, just 3, and then 5 clicks faster, just 2 and 3, and then 5 clicks faster, just 3, and then 5 clicks faster, 1, 2, and 3. So each cycle is clicking up the individual segment on its own, but then it's also adding a little bit of context when you're occasionally doing it with the others, and you're also refreshing the others and interleaving those, but with time to forget, so you're having to retrieve it. The reason why this is so effective for learning, based on my not super expertise understanding of learning science and cognitive science, is that it's interleaving, which is the retrieval practice, but it's also contextual interference, which is sort of helping to get it consolidated into long-term memory. And of course, you're going slowly enough that you can really get it correct. So in my kind of 3 phases of practice framework, phase 1 is correcting the mistakes and making sure that you're totally in control of what you're playing. Well, you get every segment at half tempo or slower, or however slow you need to do to feel totally in control with it. So throughout this process, you're getting phase 1 of practice and getting it totally in control with correcting the mistakes and making sure it's exactly correct. Then, because you're changing which segments you do and changing the orders, not the order of the segments, but the number of segments that you're doing, that's contextual interference, so that's keeping your brain engaged. And especially before Marilyn's tool, there was a lot of brain engagement just keeping track of which segment you were supposed to be on and which tempo you were doing. But that helps keep the mind engaged and helps keep you focused on it, so your brain is kind of in the moment, and you're convincing your brain that this is important information that you want to hang on to for the long term. So it's getting more deeply consolidated, more securely consolidated in the long-term memory. So you're achieving phase 2 of practice, you're getting that desirable difficulty, you're getting that contextual interference, and it's getting in there deeper. And then, because you don't do every segment, every single rep, you have some time of forgetting, and then you have to come back to it and retrieve it. And as you go through the process, the time of forgetting for the first segment where you started gets longer and longer, and there's more and more reps before you retrieve that first segment again. So the period of forgetting is gradually increasing, which is perfectly what we want for effective retrieval practice. So this one system targets all three phases of practice at the same time, where you're going slow enough that it's totally in control, but it's mixing up and challenging enough that you're mentally engaged with it. And then you're also retrieving it and testing your retrieval on it. So it's extremely effective. And as I show some videos demonstrating my work on this, you'll see how engaged I am. And I think it was after the first session on it, I talked about my brain just absolutely feeling like mush. And that's been pretty much every time I've done it. It was just so much mental work that I could tell my brain was getting stronger. It's similar to when you go to the gym and you have a really good workout and you leave the gym just like absolutely exhausted and like can barely walk, but you know you're gonna get stronger from it. That's how my brain felt after these practice sessions. So without further ado explaining why it's effective and kind of how it works, I'm gonna go ahead and jump back in time from when I'm recording this now to my first session on it and show you 3 sessions that I did on it, and you can kind of see the progress as I go along on doing this interleaved clicking up over 3 sessions and see how I actually implement it. So today is August 22nd. This is my first day doing interleaved clicking up on this passage, and to start with a bass line, I want to do one playthrough of it at half tempo, one playthrough of it at full tempo, see what happens, and we can see how much progress we make today and going forward. So this is the half tempo playthrough. And now going up to full tempo, which may be a train wreck, but I'm going to kind of performance mode, just try to go through it to get our baseline data. Kind of, sort of. So we'll see how that goes. So now looking at the interleaved clicking up, this is a really cool tool that was made by Marilyn Fleming. Again, here is the link that you can go through to check it out and actually get this. Also, if you just go to apps.returningclarinetist.com, there's a few other apps that Marilyn has been working on that are pretty cool as well. So the way that this works is, first you want to hit the settings gear here to pick your kind of parameters. So you're going to have your starting BPM, which should be the kind of slow enough that you can really comfortably and confidently play it, and then your target BPM, which is of course at least the tempo of the piece. 140 beats per minute is the tempo of this piece. That's kind of the end goal. You could also go a little bit faster than that too, to kind of push yourself and give yourself a little wiggle room. If I can make it to 140, I'm going to be delighted. So I'm leaving it at 140 for now. Maybe in the future I'll speed it up. And then you can decide what steps you want to go by for the beats per minute. 5 is a generally good place to start. You want the BPM steps to be enough of an increase that you notice that it's faster, but it's still really comfortable and in control. So on some other passages I've done bigger steps. This one's hard enough that I think 5 is going to be the highest I can go with it. So then you click apply, and then that gets you set up. And it's very simple. All you do is kind of click through this, hitting the next BPM, and it tells you what to go to. You can also hit the next cycle and kind of see how it works. So you can see in the music that I have it kind of divided into some number brackets above, and this represents the segments that I'm going to be doing. So in the first segment, you just do one segment, or in the first cycle, I should say, you do one segment and click it up. And then in the next cycle, you are doing 2 of them, but not just 2 beats over and over. There's some interleaving happening there. So this 1-2 means do both 1 and 2, then just 2, both 1 and 2, and then you continue on. So in the next cycle, you do segments 1 through 3, then just 3, then 2 through 3, then just 3, then 1 through 3, then just 3. And it's pretty straightforward. As you're going, this is the thing that you want to be looking at, is this yellow segment here. So it's like, okay, I'm at 70, I'm doing 1 through 3. Okay, now in the next cycle, I'm doing 1 through 4. If I go to the next beats per minute, I'm doing this beats per minute, segment 4, this beats per minute, segments 3 and 4, so on and so forth. So I'm going to go back to the first cycle and start clicking up just that first chunk, and I'm going to do the first line of this. So this is the end of measure 66 is my first chunk. So I'm going to use this metronome as well, which you may or may not be able to hear very well in the recording, but that's okay, you'll get the idea. So metronome going. One other thing too is once you click next BPM or prior BPM, then you can just hit enter or space and it'll automatically go on to the next one, which is very convenient. So doing segment 1, the end of measure 66 to the downbeat of 67. That feels pretty good, so I'll continue on. Oh, that was wrong. And since I did it wrong once, I'm going to do it right twice just to be sure. And now I go on to the next segment and do 1 and 2. I'm not going to play them backwards, so it actually becomes 2 and 1 going forwards, but I'll put those 2 segments together now. And I'm going to make sure I do that without rushing, since I was used to going the faster tempo. That didn't feel totally 100% confident and secure, so I'm going to do it one more time. That was better. I trust that it'll come together. Now just segment 2. That felt good. Now 2 and then 1 together. So hopefully you get the idea of how this is going to sort of progress through. I'm going to pause the recording and work through that, and then we'll check in with this group once I've done all 4 levels of the interleaved clicking up. So I've made it through the end of cycle 2, where I've got the 2 segments going up to 140 decently. I've noticed that between segment 2 and segment 1, I'm kind of having a pause and having a break. So what I'm going to do is actually overlap those now and have those be going to the beginning note of segment 1 at the end of segment 2, so that I practice that transition from segment 2 to segment 1 with every single repetition of it. You'll notice throughout this that there's several times where it does have overlapping groupings, and that's partially because the groupings on this are really tricky to figure out how to cleanly divide it into segments. But again, I think that's going to be helpful to practice the transitions between segments as we're working through this as well. And here we are on the home stretch. I thought I'd show you kind of the back half of the last cycle here, so that you can kind of see how it works when there's more segments going on. So 1 through 4, or 4 to 1 more accurately, but. I'm not quite sure I'm with the metronome. I'm going to try actually turning it up just a little bit. Wasn't clean, but it was with the metronome. That was fairly clean. This one I've been inconsistent. Sometimes I add the next start of the next segment, and sometimes I don't. I don't know if that's good or bad. And now, even though it doesn't say to, I'm going to do all four at 140. And this will be kind of testing to see how effective the whole cycle of this was so far. That's considerably better for sure than it was the first time my bass line through at 140, so that's feeling pretty encouraging. It's the next four chunk grouping that's even harder, so I'm going to work through the interleaved clicking up on that next and then see what happens there. If I can get that one through just one session of interleaved clicking up, then I'll be very, very, very happy, because the next part's the really, really tricky part. All right, I made it through my interleaved clicking up for this second two measures of this, those three groupings on the second line there. It was getting pretty mushy by the end of it as I was trying to get it. I was able to get the hardest part by far is this, the last two groupings, the last two segments that I had. And I was able to get those at 140 up to tempo fairly cleanly, and then by the time I was getting into the third one, I think I was starting to get a little bit too fatigued and wasn't able to like pay attention to all the notes. So this is the end of day one. I'm going to do our sort of baseline check-in where I'm going to play it half tempo once and then full tempo once and see what happens. I will say that I did, after I got through the interleaved clicking up and was kind of sloppy on like the last one or two tempos, I did go back and play it a few times at a comfortable speed where I felt really in control. Then I took a break for just like 2 or 3 minutes to like let my brain recover a little bit. And now we're testing and seeing how it goes for our baseline, comparing the beginning of today to now. So this is half tempo. And now up to full tempo. It did go better until it fell apart at the end. Yep. Can't do that at tempo yet, but I think it's getting there. There are a few kind of points of interest that I've noticed as I've been practicing on this that may be interesting. That one, I think by far the biggest difficulty with this is that I'm having a hard time chunking it in a logical way. So there's just like too many notes that have to get into my working memory. And I could feel when I was doing it at tempo, I was like actually literally almost getting chills and felt like my brain was just like processing so fast because it was trying to process pretty much every single note. There's really, at least on clarinet, nothing that makes more sense than a 2 or 3 note grouping here and there, especially in the second line of that. So I felt like my brain was having to like work super hard to process every single individual note, and it was a lot of work to get that kind of into working memory, because there's not enough bandwidth in working memory to keep this in meaningful logical chunks, because it doesn't chunk well. I suspect on guitar it's more manageable, where it's probably chunks by like what string you're playing on or something like that. So it's like, play these few notes on this string, then play these few notes on this string, and it kind of works out in a logical way. Or it's like, play this arpeggio in this hand position, and then this arpeggio in this hand position, and it's probably like some kind of picking pattern that's just like a lot easier to do on guitar than on clarinet. Not saying it's easy to do on guitar by any means. I think this is very challenging, and I think Polyphia, who are the band who did this, have actually said also that this is one of their super hardest songs, probably particularly for this section. And you can see live performances where this section doesn't come out super ultra clean for them even. So it's still very hard on guitar, but I think it's easier to group and chunk in a logical way probably on guitar than on clarinet. So that's definitely the biggest roadblock. And I don't know if the solution to that maybe is to try to come up with better chunks, which I've been trying to find a meaningful chunk in there. Or it might be just to continue to do more of this kind of interleaved clicking up, where I'm forcing that retrieval and continuing to work on that retrieval so that I can get these one note at a time basically out of long-term memory fast enough, which is going to take some serious work. But we're on the right track, I think. There were definitely times that I played some of the smaller chunks clean enough up to tempo, which I'm feeling good about for today, and we'll see how it goes when I have a chance to sleep on it and have it sink in more. And the last thing that I'll say, just as kind of a mental note to myself as well, I think the next step that I need to do is do interleaved clicking up on this, but in smaller segments, so that I am really processing those like 3 note groupings rather than half a measure groupings or 2 beat groupings or things like that. Yeah, let's do this. This maybe isn't like the best musical grouping, but it'll keep the kind of pattern of this one's going the F sharp to the F sharp, this one's going the E to the E. So there's a little bit of that kind of mental grouping in there. And I'm going to do this in order. So this will be segment 1, segment 2, segment 3, segment 4. And then we can get started. So I'll get the metronome going and play segment 1, and then it'll gradually work up segment 1. And make sure that as I'm doing this too, that it's rhythmically connected to the beat the way it should be. So I'm not going to put the F sharp on the beat. It's still the G is on the click of the metronome, of course. And I am going to add the downbeat of the next group in this circumstance. I may or may not do that on the next one. We'll see. That feels pretty good. Next beats per minute. Every now and then I am kind of taking a break or a little bit longer pause between them. Sometimes I do that when I have a good rep and I want that good repetition to settle in a little bit. Sometimes I do that when I have a bad rep and I need to reflect a little bit and decide like, okay, what actually was the problem? What do I need to do deliberately different to have a better rep? This is close. It's getting there. It's interesting too. Did you notice how I took a little bit longer break there to kind of talk about what I was thinking, and then coming back from that longer break, it was a ton better. I think that's an important kind of thing to remember, is that when we're doing reps on something, our brain sometimes needs a minute to kind of let that sink in and let that settle, so we don't get too frazzled just like kind of doing the reps over and over and over. And then it's almost like your brain kind of overheats. It's not like probably literally overheating, but it is kind of electrical signals kind of shooting through those neural networks. And if you keep running that same electrical signal through the same neural network so many times, it starts to actually overheat a little bit. And I think I don't know if we know this like scientifically for sure, but the way that I kind of think about it is the myelination, which is the thing that helps everything run faster and gets these neural networks up to speed. Myelination is the insulating of those neural networks, and I think the cue for your brain to myelinate a neural network is that kind of running of it and the overheating of it. It's definitely scientifically true that it's the firing of the network that cues the brain to myelinate. I'm adding the like hypothesis that it's that kind of like overheating of it that makes the brain think like, man, this neural network's getting a lot of use. I better throw some myelin around that so that it's doesn't catch my brain on fire. I don't think you can actually catch your brain on fire, but kind of that idea, right? It's always that last measure that really, really falls apart for me. I'm going to try one more time. Almost there. So I can do the second half or that last bit at tempo. I can do the first bit at tempo. Now it's just a matter of getting them to go together. So maybe the next Interleaved Clicking Up session I do on this, maybe I'll start kind of doing some overlapping chunks to start getting those bits connected. But yeah, it's a really useful tool, and I can definitely feel the improvement happening through it. And it's not bad for my second go at it. All right, here we are for day 3 of my Interleaved Clicking Up on this crazy hard music. It is now September 9th, which is 2 weeks since day 2, which is probably not ideal for this method at all, but it is what it is. This isn't a high priority project for me in my practicing, so I've been working on other stuff and I'm circling back to this, which I'm excited about. A couple things for this before we do the baseline recording. One, I did just play through this once or maybe one little section twice at 90 beats per minute because I've increased my sort of starting tempo, whereas on the other days we were starting at 70 at exactly half tempo. Now I've increased that a little bit because I think it's feeling pretty comfortable at 90, so it will speed up the Interleaved Clicking Up process a little bit. Another thing you can do too is speed up your steps, the BPM steps that you're going by. I'm going to keep it with 5 beats per minute for now, just to again feel very confident, very in control with it. But first, before we get into this and before I kind of identify the sections that I'm going to be doing the Interleaved Clicking Up on today, I'm going to get my baseline recording. So this is half tempo at 70 beats per minute. And now 140 for the baseline. And again, it's been really 2 weeks since I played this at tempo, so if this goes well, then the Interleaved Clicking Up is definitely effective. But I don't know if it's going to go well. We'll see. That was not great. It didn't sound fantastic, but I actually was mentally in control and mentally processing. And I don't think it was too far off from where I left it 2 weeks ago. So that's noteworthy and exciting. Now I'm going to identify the sections. On day 2 of this, I did very small sections. Now I'm going to see if I can open up to a little bit bigger sections to, again, just kind of keep it fresh and be able to do the whole phrase now all together. So for this first section, I'm going to go up until here. And then for the second section, I'm going to go all the way to here. Then I'm going to overlap the third section, and I'm going to split up the hard stuff at the end still and go from here to here. And then for the fourth section, to keep the idea of the big section, I'm going to start with this. I might change my mind. I'm going to do this for section 4. So that's 1, 2, and I'm going forwards, 3, 4. Starting at 90, and I'm going to work my way through the process. So we get our metronome going, and start with just segment 1. And I will probably add those downbeats most of the time. I don't think that was actually with the metronome. I'm going to turn up the metronome a little bit one more time. That was with the metronome. Okay, there we go. This isn't feeling totally 100% in control at the full tempos with this big of a chunk, but I'm going to keep kind of wrestling through that and see what results I can get. I'm going to kind of trust the process even though it's not feeling perfect. I'm going to keep trying to get it closer and closer to feeling in control, but kind of accept where it's at for today and trust over time it's going to sink in. So going on to the next cycle, now we're doing segment 2 increasing by 5s and then interleaving segment 1 every other time. Still getting a little off from the metronome. I'm going to try to find where that is. It's definitely somewhat on these leaps up to the higher F sharp, and I think I'm slowing down after that actually, because I'm waiting too long to hear the F sharp. I just need to get it in there and go on. That was better. So I had paused for a second, but I came across something interesting that I wanted to note and highlight. As I was doing these 2 segments at 130 beats per minute, I felt like I wasn't getting to the downbeat of 67 on time, and I was like, oh, what's going on? Like, where am I slowing down? And as I analyzed it a little bit more, I realized I was actually rushing and actually speeding up too much, which is a super common thing whenever we're working on fast stuff. Almost always the problem is that we're going too fast, and that's why we lose control of things. But it was very interesting that 130 beats per minute now is not as fast as I can possibly play this. And I'm starting to get into that kind of magical mode when you're playing super fast stuff, but your brain is actually feels like it's going slower and you're actually still able to comprehend all of the notes even as you're going extremely fast, which was a really cool thing to have happen. So I'm going to go ahead and play this for you a couple times so you can hear. And I'll probably rush because I haven't really fixed it yet. You can hear this note I'm not hitting the metronome with, actually. I'm going to just stop right on that G. See, I'm a little bit off from the metronome. And I'm actually having to slow down to hit that. So I'm going to go back to doing the full segment together and see if I can be in control and slow enough the whole time. That time I was actually a little bit behind the metronome. I'm getting to the point where I'm like trying to anticipate where the next click is, and I'm kind of compressing a little bit and then waiting for the click. So I need to keep smoothing it out. I'm going to go ahead and pause the recording again and keep working my way through this. And again, kind of trusting the process that I'll get the hang of it and I'll settle in as we go. And now that we have finished through the interleaved clicking up process, now I'm going to do my bass line again. One run through at 70 beats per minute. One run through at 140. It's getting there. It's getting close for sure. I can definitely still feel where I'm like overloading the working memory, especially playing through the whole thing. By the time we get to the end, it's just like there's not enough brain power there to continue focusing and playing the rhythms. However, that time when I did it at 70 just now as kind of my baseline, I noticed that I was starting to find a little bit more groove to it and starting to see the kind of bigger picture of the chunks, and I think my brain is starting to come up with some way of organizing these notes in kind of clarinet playing terms and just musical ideas too, to kind of have it come together. So that's feeling good. And the biggest breakthrough today was that I was feeling even at 140, I could perceive when I was getting ahead of the beat and when I needed to settle back in. And I think that's a great indicator that you're close to being able to play the fast notes as fast as you need and be able to think fast enough, is when you kind of feel settled into the beat and feel like you're going at kind of a reasonable tempo, even when it's really not a reasonable tempo at all. So that's day 3. I'm already absolutely convinced that the interleaved clicking up is working and doing wonders, and I've progressed more in the past month of working on this by doing interleaved clicking up just 3 times than I did in pretty much the whole year that I was working on this sporadically using other techniques. So I think this is definitely the way to go if you have anything that's really, really challenging for speed in particular. And of course, there's a whole bunch of other practice techniques that might be good to do before you do the interleaved clicking up even, but I think it will really work if you can play it cleanly and comfortably and confidently in control, and you know that your fingers are there. This will absolutely do the trick to get those insanely fast things up to that insanely fast tempo, feeling not all that crazy, which I'm really happy and really excited about. So I hope that you're as convinced as I am. This method definitely works, and when you have those impossibly fast passages that you've tried everything and no matter what, you can't get it figured out and get it confidently in control, then it's time to take that passage to the ICU and do some interleaved clicking up on it so that you can build it up. Doing just 3 practice sessions doing interleaved clicking up has made more progress for me than the entire year of sporadically practicing it did. I also have found that it's not quite there yet, but I know that it's on the right track, and I know that as I keep doing this, it's absolutely gonna sink in. So be sure to subscribe to this channel if you want to see my future full cover of 40 Ounce by Polyphia. Also, speaking of subscribers, this past week I reached over 10,000 subscribers on the channel, so thank you all so much for subscribing, and I'm glad that you're enjoying this content. Definitely check out Dr. Gabriel's video on interleaved clicking up. Definitely check out Marilyn's tool that makes it so much easier to actually implement. And thank you so much for watching this video, for subscribing, for enjoying the content that I'm making, and I look forward to seeing you in another one. And last but not least, a huge heartfelt thank you to the Dennersons. This is like the Quick Start Clarinet family who supports the channel and helps to make everything that I do possible. If you would like to support the channel and get some awesome rewards in return where we can work one-on-one over video and you can have my full support moving forward on your clarinet journey, then go to quickstartclarinet.com/supporter.